In cybersecurity, there's this one simple rule that really trumps everything else. You can't protect what you can't see. So, how do you see? Well, that's where vulnerability scanning tools come in. Think of them as your flashlight in a pitch black room. They are the absolute first step to building any kind of strong defense. So let's take a look at how they work. Right. This is really at the very heart of the entire cybersecurity challenge. In the real world, you can see a cracked window or a broken lock. But in the digital world, those weaknesses are totally invisible, buried deep in lines of code or network settings. This is the problem that security pros wrestle with every single day, and we're about to see the tools they use to solve it. Okay, here's our game plan. First, we're going to learn how to see a system like an attacker would. Then, we'll dive into an amazing tool called Nmap to map out a network. After that, we'll get into probing the web applications that actually run on that network. And finally, and this is the important part, we'll see how using these attacker tools is actually the secret to building a really powerful defense. Look, it doesn't matter if you're on the attacking side or the defending side. You just can't go in blind. The very first move, always, is gathering information. You have to understand the digital terrain before you can even think about making a move. Yeah, ethical hacking isn't just one thing. It's this very methodical 5-step process. It starts with reconnaissance, then moves to scanning, then gaining access, maintaining that access, and finally, clearing your tracks. Now for us, we are going to zero in on those first 2 steps, reconnaissance and scanning, because honestly, that's where the entire foundation for security is built. So what's the actual difference between these two? Well, you can think of reconnaissance as being a detective. You're gathering public clues, doing some initial surveillance. It's pretty broad. Scanning, on the other hand, is when you pull out the specialized equipment. It's a much more active, tool-driven hunt for very specific entry points and weaknesses. And when we talk about scanning tools, there is one name that just stands head and shoulders above the rest: Nmap. Let's dig into how it takes that initial information and turns it into a super detailed map of the entire network. So meet Nmap. It's short for Network Mapper. The best way to think about Nmap is to imagine you're sending a scout to map out an enemy fortress. The scout doesn't attack, right? No. They come back with a crazy detailed blueprint that shows you every single door, every window, every guard tower. It's just an absolutely essential tool for discovering what's on a network. And the level of detail you get is just incredible. I mean, Nmap will tell you exactly which devices are online, what services they're running, what operating systems they have, and even what kind of firewalls might be in place. It literally paints a complete picture of the digital landscape for you. So how in the world does it do all this? Well, it's kind of like a 4-step dance. First, it just pings the network to see who's home. That's host discovery. Simple enough. Then it goes and checks all the digital doors and windows, the open ports. Next, it actually peeks inside those open windows to see what programs are running. We call that service version detection. And finally, it figures out the architecture of the building itself by identifying the operating system. And this right here is where Nmap gets really, really powerful. A basic scan might tell you a door is unlocked, but running a scan with the SV command for version detection, that tells you the lock on the door is a 10-year-old model that basically everyone knows how to pick. Finding a specific, outdated piece of software isn't just a little useful. It's often the exact, precise entry point an attacker is hoping to find. Okay, so Nmap is amazing for mapping the network itself, but a massive amount of an organization's actual risk isn't in the network. It's in the applications running on top of it. We're talking about web applications, and for that, you need a totally different kind of tool. Let's jump back to our fortress analogy for a sec. Nmap gave us the blueprint, right? We know where the walls and towers are. But what about the actual messages being passed back and forth through the main gate? To check those, we have to get up close and personal with the traffic itself. And for that job, we have Burp Suite. It basically acts as a person in the middle. It's a proxy that sits right between your browser and the web server, and it intercepts everything. This lets a security tester look at, change, and even replay individual requests to poke and prod the application for any weaknesses. This tool is absolutely critical for finding really dangerous web vulnerabilities. We're talking about major flaws like SQL injection, where an attacker can trick a database into spilling its secrets, or cross-site scripting, which can be used to steal a user's login info. I mean, these are the kinds of flaws that lead to those massive data breaches you hear about. And Burp Suite lets the good guys find them before the bad guys do. So, we've talked about a couple of tools that, let's be honest, sound like they belong in a hacker's toolkit. But the real power of these tools, the reason they're so important, is when they're used not for offense, but for proactive defense. And if there's one thing to take away, it's this. Real organizations and ethical hackers run these exact same scans on their own systems. They use Nmap and Burp Suite to find their own weaknesses. It's this constant cycle of self-assessment, of finding and fixing the cracks in your own walls before someone else gets a chance to. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Being able to see your own systems through an attacker's eyes, that's the difference between having basic security and having a truly tough, robust defense. It's how you answer that big question we started with. How do you find a weakness you don't know exists? Well, now you know the tools that help you find the answer.